Yo, what's up everyone? Patrick here, welcome back. And in this video, what we got to do is find the domain of these two functions. Notice they're pretty similar. They're both x minus 2 to the power of something. Here we have to the power of 3 over 2. Here we have the power to that reciprocal, 2 over 3. And they look similar, but the domains are actually going to be very different. So notice the first thing I'm actually going to do is I'm going to rewrite these functions. So this one here, I'm actually going to split up this fraction. So I'm going to say x minus 2 to the power of a half to the power of 3. And then over here, this one, I'm going to write x minus 2 to the power of 1 over 3 to the power of 2. And writing it in this format, I feel like it's going to help in explaining the domain a little bit better. So notice that here, x minus 2 to the power of a half, that's the same, x minus 2 to the power of a half is the exact same as the square root of x minus 2. And we know that whatever we're square rooting, that expression has to be greater than or equal to 0. And so in this case, x has to be greater than or equal to 2 over here. Because if we try to input a negative number here, we would get an undefined answer because we can't square root a negative. And this 1/2 is basically square rooting it. But over here, we're third rooting it. And you could take the odd root of a negative number. You can't take the even root of a negative number. So if this was like 1 over 2 or 1 over 4, 1 over 6, 1 over 8, any even number over here instead of the 2, then this would still be the domain. But over here, we could take an odd root of a negative number. So we could take the third root, we could take the fifth root, we could take the seventh root. And so over here, there is no restriction on x. So over here, x is an element of real numbers. Okay, so up here, basically, the domain of this is going to be x is an element from positive 2 to positive infinity, like that. And then over here, x is an element of real numbers, or we could say x is an element. It could be anything from negative infinity to positive infinity, like that. And in fact, the difference between these two graphs, so the way this graph looks, x minus 2 to the power of 3 over 2, so over here we would have 2, kind of looks something like this, right? Just continues rising, but there's no x values that are less than 2, so notice that x is greater than or equal to 2. This is graph number 1. And then graph number 2, the way it looks, is they both share that point 2 and 0, but basically this graph looks something like this, right? So the x values can be less than 2 for this graph, right? It's XCR, the domain. There's no restriction on the domain. So this is the domain of the first function. This is the domain of the second function. So just be careful with what kind of exponents you're dealing with.